His hand was still on my thigh when the front door opened. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Ethan's lips were on my neck, his body pressed against mine on the couch, the faint taste of wine still lingering between us. The room was dim except for the flicker of the TV, the soundtrack of some movie we were not even watching anymore. And then I heard it. The sound of Daniel's voice, my husband, calling my name from the hallway. The blood in my veins turned cold. Ethan's grip tightened, his eyes darting to the doorway. Daniel stepped into the living room, his gaze landing directly on us, on my blouse that was half unbuttoned, on the bra strap falling off my shoulder, on Ethan's hand that had not moved fast enough. We did not speak. None of us. But in Daniel's eyes, I saw the end of my marriage already written. To all my loyal subscribers, thank you for being here again. And to my new viewers, I see you and I am grateful for you stopping by. If you have not subscribed yet, I cannot wait for you to hit that button because it is the fuel and energy that keeps this channel alive. Your engagement means everything to me. After this hook, share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know how this moment made you feel. My name is Emily Carter. I am 34 years old, and I live in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado. I married Daniel Carter when I was 26, after 2 years of dating. On paper, we were the perfect couple, him in his tailored suits working as a corporate manager for a tech company, me managing a small but thriving interior design business. We had a spacious 2-story house, a backyard with a wooden deck, and a golden retriever named Max. Neighbors waved when we drove by. People envied us. But what no one saw was how empty I felt inside. Daniel was a good man. Steady. Dependable. The kind who paid bills early and never forgot to change the oil in the car. But somewhere along the way, our marriage became predictable, cold, even. We had sex once, maybe twice a month, and when we did, it felt like routine maintenance rather than passion. His mind was always on work, and mine wandered to places I was too ashamed to admit. It was last spring when I met Ethan Brooks. He was 29, a trainer at the gym I had joined after realizing I was gaining weight from too many wine nights with my girlfriends. Ethan had that kind of charm that could disarm anyone, sandy blonde hair, broad shoulders, a smile that seemed to linger just for you. He was the kind of man who noticed things. How my hair looked better when I wore it down. How my hands trembled slightly when I did push-ups. How I laughed differently when I was trying to hide that I was nervous. At first, it was harmless flirting. A hand on my lower back when guiding me to a machine. Compliments that stayed just on the safe side of inappropriate. But then came the messages. Late-night texts about how he could not stop thinking about me. Questions about whether Daniel appreciated me the way I deserved. The first time we crossed the line was a rainy Thursday. Daniel was out of town for a corporate retreat. Ethan and I met for a post-workout smoothie, but ended up in his apartment instead. I told myself I would never forget the way he kissed me that day, deep, hungry, like a man starved for something he had craved for too long. His hands roamed like they had been waiting for permission, and my body responded before my mind could remind me that I was a wife. Clothes came off, boundaries dissolved, and by the time I left, I knew I had done something I could never take back. It should have ended there. A mistake. A lapse in judgment. But instead, it became a pattern. We would meet at his place after my yoga class, or sometimes in the back of his SUV parked in secluded spots. The danger, the secrecy, it was intoxicating. I told myself Daniel would never know, and that made it easier to keep going. Then came that night. Daniel was supposed to be working late. Ethan came over around 8 p.m., bringing a bottle of red wine and that smug grin that always made my pulse quicken. We sat on the couch, sipping, laughing, his hand on my knee slowly inching higher. Soon, my blouse was open, his lips tracing fire along my collarbone, my legs tangled with his. The sound of the door unlocking hit me like a gunshot. Emily? Daniel's voice carried through the hallway, casual, unsuspecting. Ethan jerked back slightly, but it was too late. Daniel stepped into the living room, still holding his briefcase, and froze. His eyes scanned the scene, my flushed cheeks, Ethan's proximity, the wine glasses, the way the air seemed heavy with heat. The silence was unbearable. I wanted to speak, to explain, but my mouth was dry. Daniel did not yell. He did not ask questions. He just looked at me with a stillness that cut deeper than any scream could. His jaw tightened, and his eyes. God, his eyes. They were not angry yet. They were something worse, they were empty. Ethan stood up slowly, muttering something about leaving. He grabbed his jacket and slipped past Daniel without a word. The door closed behind him, and I was left sitting there, my blouse still unbuttoned, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Daniel walked past me without a word and went upstairs. I sat there for what felt like hours, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on me. I had always imagined that if I ever told him, it would be on my terms, carefully chosen words, maybe even tears to soften the blow. But now, he knew. He had seen it. And there was no undoing the image burned into his mind. I wanted to run after him, to beg for forgiveness, to tell him that I had made a mistake. But deep down, I knew it was not just a mistake. It was a choice I had made over and over again, and now I was going to live with the consequences. That night, we slept in the same house but in two different worlds. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing every creak of the floor as Daniel moved around in the guest room. I did not cry. I did not sleep. I just waited for morning, knowing that the silence between us was only the beginning. The next morning was suffocating in its stillness. Daniel moved through the house like a ghost, deliberate, silent, and distant. He did not look at me when he brewed his coffee. He did not speak when I offered to make breakfast. His shoulders were tense, his movements clipped, like even the act of sharing the same air was an effort. I thought he might explode, demand answers, accuse me of every detail he had imagined in his mind. But he did not. The absence of confrontation was worse. It left me suspended in a quiet hell, unsure of when the blow would land. By mid-morning, he was gone, his car pulling out of the driveway without a word. The sound of the garage door closing behind him felt final, like he had taken all the oxygen with him. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my untouched coffee, replaying the night over and over in my head. And then my phone buzzed. "Ethan, we need to talk." I should have ignored it. I should have cut him off, deleted his number, and spent the rest of the day trying to patch the crater in my marriage. But instead, my thumbs moved before my conscience caught up. Not a good time. "Ethan, I can be there in 20. I told him no. He came anyway. When I opened the door, he stepped inside without waiting for permission. He looked different, not his usual confident self. He looked unsettled. "I did not mean for him to find out like that," he said, voice low. I crossed my arms, feeling raw and exposed. "You should not be here." He moved closer. "Do you regret it? Any of it?" I hated him for asking that. Because the truth was, I did not regret the way he made me feel. The heat, the urgency, the way his hands could undo me in seconds. I regretted the risk, but not the taste of him. And that realization made me hate myself even more. We ended up in the kitchen, our words turning into touches, his mouth on mine before I could summon the will to push him away. The kiss was urgent, almost desperate, as if he was trying to reclaim something Daniel's presence had stolen the night before. My back hit the counter, his hands gripping my waist, the sound of our breaths filling the space. But I pulled away. Not out of loyalty to Daniel, but out of fear that he might walk in again. Ethan's eyes burned into mine, frustration flickering there. "You are going to lose him anyway," he said. "Why not just be with me?" I did not answer. I could not. Because as much as Daniel's silence gutted me, I was not ready to let him go. Not yet. That week, Daniel began coming home later than usual. He never explained where he had been. He no longer told me about his meetings or asked about my day. When he did speak, it was about bills or the dog or something that had nothing to do with us. I noticed subtle changes, his wedding ring off more often than on, his cologne lingering faintly on his shirts even when he claimed to have worked late. One night, I caught a whiff of perfume that was not mine on his jacket. My stomach twisted. Was he? The irony hit me like a slap. The idea that Daniel might be seeing someone else after what I had done should not have mattered, but it did. Neighbors started to notice. Mrs. Lawrence across the street asked if everything was all right when she saw me taking the trash out alone 3 nights in a row. My best friend, Julia, called and asked why Daniel had skipped their usual double-date dinner. I lied. I told them all he was busy with work. But in the privacy of our home, the tension was suffocating. We moved around each other like strangers. Meals were eaten in silence. Nights were spent in separate rooms. And yet, I could feel him watching me sometimes, studying me when he thought I was not looking. It was as if he was waiting for me to dig my own grave a little deeper. Ethan, meanwhile, became relentless. He sent messages every day, sometimes just a single word, soon. Other times, entire paragraphs about how he could give me what Daniel never would. The dangerous part was, part of me believed him. The thrill, the lust, the attention, it was addictive. One Friday afternoon, I met Ethan at a motel on the edge of town. It was supposed to be one last time before I ended it for good. I told myself I needed closure, but deep down, I knew that was a lie. The moment his hands touched me, all thoughts of endings evaporated. The hours slipped away in sweat and tangled sheets. When I finally left, my skin still smelled like him. I came home to find Daniel in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a glass of whiskey in his hand. His eyes followed me as I walked in, unblinking, too calm. My pulse quickened. "Where have you been?" he asked. His voice was even, but it carried weight. "Running errands," I lied. He smiled. Not warmly. Not kindly. It was the kind of smile that said he knew exactly where I had been. That night, he did not come to bed. Over the next few days, small things began to happen. My favorite bottle of perfume went missing from the bathroom. A framed photo of us from our honeymoon disappeared from the living room wall. My gym membership, the one where I had first met Ethan, was suddenly cancelled without my request. Daniel never mentioned these things. But I noticed. And I knew. He was not yelling, he was not accusing. He was dismantling pieces of my life quietly, methodically, one by one. And still, I could not bring myself to let Ethan go. What I did not know was that Daniel had already gone further than I imagined. That he was not just passively pulling away. He was digging. Gathering. Waiting. The night he finally decided to use what he had found would not just end my marriage, it would shatter every illusion I had left about who I thought he was. I knew something was coming. The way Daniel's silence had shifted from shock to strategy told me that this was no longer about what I had done, it was about what he was going to do with it. It was a Tuesday evening when it finally happened. The house was quiet except for the steady tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for a dinner I was not sure he would even touch, when I heard him call my name. "Emily." His voice was calm, almost too calm. I turned to see him standing in the doorway, a folder in his hand. He walked in, set it on the counter, and slid it toward me. Inside were photographs. Photographs of me and Ethan. Outside the motel, in his car, even a grainy shot of us kissing in the gym parking lot. There were printed screenshots of text messages I thought I had deleted. The time-stamped proof of every time I had chosen Ethan over my marriage stared back at me like a confession I had never given. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Daniel. Do not," he said, holding up a hand. His voice was steady, but his eyes were like steel. "Do not insult me with excuses. I have known for weeks. I watched you lie to my face every single day. I let you. I wanted to see how far you would go." It hit me then, he had been watching me self-destruct. Letting me hang myself with my own rope. I already spoke to a lawyer, he continued. The papers are ready. You can keep the house if you want. I will be gone by the end of the week. The words landed like blows. My throat burned, but I could not cry. Crying would have been easier than this cold, methodical dismantling of our life. I loved you, he said finally. More than you will ever understand. And you threw it away for him. That night, I called Ethan. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. By the next day, his number was disconnected. His social media was gone. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. At first, I told myself it was a coincidence. That maybe he had just needed space after the fallout. But deep down, I knew the truth. Ethan had wanted me as long as I was a secret, as long as the thrill was intact. The moment it turned into real life, with lawyers and broken marriages, he disappeared. It was almost poetic in its cruelty. The day Daniel left, I watched him pack his suitcase in silence. He did not look at me, did not touch me, did not even seem angry anymore. He was just done. When he closed the front door behind him, the sound echoed through the empty house like a gunshot. I wandered from room to room, every corner filled with ghosts of what we used to be. The wedding photo that once hung in the hallway was gone. The drawers where he kept his ties were empty. The bed felt cavernous without the weight of him on the other side. Max, our golden retriever, sat by the door for hours, waiting for a man who was not coming back. The whispers started soon after. Julia stopped answering my calls. Mrs. Lawrence from across the street stopped waving when she saw me. At the grocery store, I caught people glancing at me, their voices dropping as I passed. I had gone from the woman with the perfect marriage to the woman who destroyed it, and there was no erasing that stain. I spent nights scrolling through old messages from Ethan, rereading the same lines over and over until the words lost meaning. I cannot stop thinking about you. You deserve more than he gives you. You are mine. But they were just pixels on a screen now. Empty promises from a man who had already moved on. One evening, I sat alone at the kitchen table with the divorce papers in front of me. My signature was already on them. His was not. He had left them for me to see every day, a reminder of what I had done. A reminder that forgiveness was never on the table. I stared at the blank space where his name should be, knowing he would sign them eventually. Knowing that when he did, it would be final. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I replay the moment he walked into the living room and saw me with Ethan. I imagine what would have happened if I had told him first, if I had fallen to my knees and begged him to hear me out. But the truth is, I think he would have left either way. Because some things cannot be undone. And some betrayals are not meant to be forgiven. Now, the house feels too big. The silence too loud. And every time I catch my reflection in the mirror, I see the woman who threw away everything, not for love, but for lust. And I know, with a certainty that makes my chest ache, that this is the version of me I will have to live with for the rest of my life.